Hi, it's Gabrielle Lichterman, founder of Hormonology, creator of the Hormone Horoscope Menstrual Cycle Tracker apps, and author of 28 Days What Your Cycle Reveals about your moods, health, and potential. Thanks for joining me again on YouTube for another hormonology tip. So, today I want to talk about how the hormones in your cycle can impact how you make decisions. Now, we're making decisions every day, right? Big or small, whether to quit our job or start a podcast or buy a new car or which car to buy. So it's important to know all the things that impact your decision so you can make the best decision. And hormones, the ups and downs of hormones in your cycle certainly are a factor that can impact your decisions. And I'm not saying that hormones make you choose a certain path and that you have no control. But the ups and downs of hormones in your cycle do impact your energy, your mood, your enthusiasm, your outlook. And these things can impact the choice you take and how you make your decisions. So today I want to talk about where you are in your cycle and how that can impact your decision so that you can make the best decision you can. So let's start with the first half of your cycle. We're going to make it kind of simple. We're going to talk about your cycle in terms of halves. So the first half is the first day of your period through ovulation, and that's week 1 and week 2. And the second half will be the day after ovulation through the day before your next period, and that'll be week 3 and week 4. So as I said before, your hormones impact your mood, your outlook, your confidence, your energy, your enthusiasm. So let's talk about the first half of your cycle. If you're making a decision in the first half of your cycle, your week 1 and week 2, the first day of your period through ovulation, you should know that on these days, estrogen is rising. And the higher estrogen rises, the closer you get to ovulation, the more this hormone boosts your mood. It improves your energy. It revs your confidence. It makes you very hopeful and optimistic. It's giving you a lot of enthusiasm, so you're easily swept up in, say, an exciting sales pitch, and you see the benefits. So what's happening is, because you have all this energy and optimism and good feelings, you do tend to focus more on what will go right with your decision, and you may downplay what could go wrong. What are the red flags? What are the problems? What are the challenges? What are the hurdles? You may try to sweep those under the rug. You may try to ignore them altogether. Um, and this can make you come to a decision very quickly, meaning you could be more impulsive during the first half of your monthly cycle when making a decision, meaning you may jump into a decision quickly because you're just so confident about it. You're so confident that your choice is going to end up good. This is the path you're going to take. That's going to be the one that's going to work out, and there's going to be no problems because this high and rising estrogen is making you upbeat and optimistic and confident. So how does this play out in the real world? Say you are making a decision. Say you want to decide, should I start a new podcast? Now, if you're thinking about this in the first half of your cycle, especially close to ovulation, you tend to look at things in terms of how good they're going to be, how this is going to turn out great, how easy it's going to be. So you may think, oh, yes, I've got a lot to say for a podcast. I can do 1,000,000 episodes. I will never run out of anything to say. And I've got lots of friends, and I know people who I'd love to interview, and it won't take up much time at all. What is it, an hour a week? Well, so what? I can do that. And you may downplay the challenges, which could include, well, you may not have as much to say as you thought, or it may be more difficult than you think to get people to agree to do a podcast because they're busy, or you might not realize all the time that it really does take to put into it. Okay, so say another example, you're looking for a new home, say a house or an apartment, and you walk into a home and you think, oh, this is great, this is perfect, new appliances, great neighborhood, and you're seeing the benefits, and you may downplay the downsides, and that could include, well, when you turn on those beautiful new faucets, the water coming out is making a weird noise in the pipes, which could indicate a problem, or maybe it's a little bit out of your budget and the real estate person or property manager is pushing you to take it, and this rising estrogen is making you feel optimistic that you could somehow make this larger payment work. So same thing if you're buying a car or you're gambling, you could come to decisions faster and see only the benefits. Okay, so that's the first half of your cycle. I think we've covered that pretty clearly. Let's go to the second half of your cycle. The second half of your cycle spans the day after ovulation and goes through the day before your next period. It's your week 3 and week 4. And things are a little bit more complex. Right after ovulation, estrogen drops steeply. Then it rises and then it drops again. Progesterone rises and then falls throughout that 2-week span. But generally speaking, we can say that estrogen is lower and progesterone is higher during this phase, during the final the second half of your cycle. So what does that mean for you in decision making? Well, if you're making a decision in the second half of your cycle, you should know that this hormone profile makes you more cautious. It also makes you more pessimistic, cynical. Your outlook is more negative. You are more prone to focusing on what could go wrong than what could go right, which is exactly the opposite of what happened in the first half of your cycle, as we just discussed. So you're more focused on what could go wrong. You're less confident as well. So you may be thinking about, other times that you made a decision and it didn't turn out great. So you may be second guessing yourself. You also have less energy and enthusiasm, so you're not as easily won over by somebody who is trying to convince you to make a decision. All this can stretch the amount of time that you deliberate about a decision. Whereas in the first half of your cycle, you kind of made a decision pretty quickly. You were more impulsive. During the second half of your cycle, you're more deliberate. In fact, you may deliberate so long that you may lose out on an opportunity because you just couldn't make a decision. So, what does this mean for you when it comes to making a decision in the real world? Well, let's go back to our original example. Say you want to start a podcast. If you are thinking about this in the second half of your cycle, there's a chance that you could be focusing more on what could go wrong than what could go right. For example, you may think you don't have enough time, you don't have the expertise, and you'll never be able to learn it. You may think that you don't have enough to talk about, or that you won't be able to find experts to interview for your podcast. Or let's say we're going to, you're looking for a new home, going to a house or an apartment. You may look at the house and the apartment and it may be great, but maybe you saw like a house down the block that seemed a little sketchy and you're like, maybe this isn't the greatest neighborhood. Or maybe you think the rent or mortgage payment is out of your budget, even though maybe it's not. So you tend to focus more on what are the challenges rather than the benefits. So what can you do with all this? So basically, the first half of your cycle, more impulsive, more optimistic. The second half, you deliberate longer, you're more pessimistic. How can you make a great decision? Well, knowing how your hormones impact factors that impact your decision, such as your mood, and your outlook, and your energy, and your confidence, you can kind of like counterbalance. You can, in the first half of your cycle, you can say, okay, look, I'm looking at this opportunity or this choice, and I'm thinking mostly of the benefits and what could go right. I really just want to jump headfirst into it. Well, you can also say, but I'm in the first half of my cycle and I tend to be a little bit more optimistic during this phase due to rising estrogen. So why don't I write down a list of the cons, the challenges that might come with this choice, and focus a little bit more on those. That way, even if I do go forward with my decision, start the podcast, take the apartment, at least I will have had a clearer heads up about what the challenges could have been. Okay, well, I know that it might take more time than I anticipate to start a new podcast. Or I know that it might take more money to afford this great apartment, but, maybe I'll give up my, daily coffee shop habit and try to save more because the apartment's more important. So when you're in the first half of your cycle, you can overcome that sense of optimism, that, urgency. You can slow down and think about what the challenges might be. Now, in the second half of your cycle, when you're thinking it's all challenges and no benefits, you can write down a list of the pros, write down a list of the benefits, and think about the good things that could happen if you tried, if you took this path, if you made this decision. Now, by doing this, you balance yourself out and you make the decision that's right for you, the one that has the longer lasting benefit. Now, I do have one cool cycle hack that I have used for years and I've recommended for a long time, and many hormonology fans have tried with great success. And I'm going to share it here. It's really easy and quick. And if you have the time to make your decision to use a cycle hack, it could really come in handy. There is one time in your cycle that I call the reality check phase. This is a span of days, of 4 days, when you're seeing the world through a more balanced view. It's neither super optimistic, like it is during much of the first half of your cycle due to rising estrogen, and it's neither really pessimistic due to plunging estrogen in the second half of your cycle. There's a sweet spot in your cycle that helps you see things more balanced. You can see the pros and you can see the cons. And this is, like I said, what I call the reality check phase of your cycle. And where this is it starts 4 days after ovulation. So you ovulate and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to 8 days after ovulation. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That 4 to 8 day span after ovulation, it just seems like the sweet spot, because on these days, and these are the only days in your cycle when this happens, on these days, both estrogen and progesterone rise. And when that happens, you get the hopefulness and optimism and the confidence of rising estrogen, but it's tempered with the sedating, play it safe, let's be cautious effects of rising progesterone. So you have this optimism, but you also have this cautiousness. And that's why I say you can see the world through a more balanced lens, because you can see the pros, but you can also see the cons and not really be overwhelmed by each. So if you have the time to make your decision, say you're trying to decide whether to leave your job, change careers, go back to school, pick a school. If you can, and you can look at that, that issue at that span of time in your cycle, that would be a great time to make a big decision. I had one hormonology fan who used this cycle hack to decide when or if she should invite her partner to live with her, take it to the next level. And she found that she was weighing the pros and cons, and it worked. And she did end up inviting that partner to live with her, and now they're happily married. It's one of many hormonology success stories, which I'm really proud of. Another thing you can do, again, this is only if you have the time, is go through each week of your cycle and keep a diary, keep a journal, and note how you feel about the decision you want to make. If you want to leave your job, and you don't have to do it right away, take at least one cycle to jot down how you feel about making this huge step. Are you very optimistic about it in the first half of your cycle, but maybe you see some problems? Are there, even though estrogen is rising, when you should be feeling very confident and optimistic about this change, are you feeling like, there's, you could be losing? There are red flags that tell you not to do it. If they're prominent during that phase, well, that means you really do have some very big worries and challenges with that decision. If during the second half of your cycle, you're still really rah, 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 let's do this, I want to go, I'm confident about making this big change, even though lower estrogen and higher progesterone usually make you more cautious. If you're still feeling, yes, let's do this, then that is another indication that this would be a decision you would be happy with in the long term. So again, if you're thinking about making a big decision and you want to be sure about how you really feel about it, jot down a few notes about how you feel in each week of your cycle so that you can really gauge whether this is something you're confident about or this is something you might want to continue to consider. So those are my cycle hacks for making a decision. I hope they help you with your future decisions. You can learn more about how your hormones impact you in virtually every way: mood, energy, how you shop, your libido, how you react to problems, whether you're resilient or you're, fighting back or they're bringing you down. And find out how hormones just impact you in ways you never even thought, like how you see the world. For instance, you see more color during your ovulatory phase. You literally see more colors. I mean, these are amazing facts about our hormones that nobody's ever told us. But I did. And I do, because I love our hormones and our cycles, and I love all the amazing things, amazing impacts that they have on us. So I share them with you, a lot of them on my website, myhormonology.com. I also share them in my apps, the Hormone Horoscope app. There's a free version, so please download that. There's a pro version that goes into more detail, but start with the free version to see if it's something that you like. I also have my great book, which I love, 28 Days, What Your Cycle Reveals About Your Moods, Health, and Potential. It's really very comprehensive. And one of the things I love most is something I did on the pages. I created an easy way to access where you are in your cycle with these little tabs. These are for the days of your cycle, and these are for the weeks. And kind of handy. I like it. Can you tell I like my book? I like my book. 28 Days is available at Amazon in both ebook and paperback. So it's got a lot of these great, amazing details. Of course, it tells you how your hormones impact your moods, your health, your energy, how you spend money, your romantic relationships, and so much more. But it also has a lot of fun facts and interesting things that you never would have thought about, that hormones could impact you. It also shows you how to sync your life with your cycle. It gives you those suggestions, just to make your life a little bit easier. So I hope you take advantage of that. And if you have any questions, of course, I'm always happy to help when I can. Just email me at gabrielle@myhormonology.com. And that's it for today. I'll be talking with you again next week. And thanks for watching this video. Till next time.